The story begins with the vast, untamed wilderness of the American frontier, a place where danger lurks in every shadow, and survival demands resilience and intuition. The protagonist, Tayanita, a young Apache warrior known for his quiet strength and unwavering moral compass, is patrolling the riverbanks near his village. The river is swollen from recent rains, rushing with a ferocity that could sweep away anything unfortunate enough to fall into its grasp. The air is crisp with the scent of pine and earth, the forest alive with the quiet hum of life. From the rustling of leaves to the occasional call of a distant hawk, Tayanita, a man in his late 20s, has lived most of his life in the solitude of nature, honing his survival skills in the art of tracking, hunting, and reading the land. Despite his solitary existence, he carries a deep sense of empathy and justice, traits instilled in him by his elders. This day, like many before it, seems ordinary until a sudden panicked scream shatters the tranquil symphony of the forest. The sound is desperate, human, and unmistakably filled with terror. Following the scream, Tayanita arrives at a scene of imminent danger. A young woman is being swept downstream by the powerful current, her cries growing weaker with each passing second. She is struggling valiantly, but the river is relentless, its icy waters lashing against her as if determined to swallow her whole. In a split second, Tayanita evaluates the risks, knowing that jumping in could endanger his own life. Yet, the instinct to save her overpowers caution. Without hesitation, he plunges into the churning waters, using his strength and swimming skills to close the distance between himself and the struggling woman. The young woman, whose name is Elena, is initially terrified of Tayanita, mistaking him for a threat as he grabs her in the torrent. But as she feels the steady grip of his hands and the unyielding determination in his expression, panic slowly turns into tentative trust. Tayanita maneuvers through the rapids with remarkable skill, relying on years of experience navigating rivers and understanding water currents. Finally, he reaches a calmer bend and hauls her onto the riverbank, both of them exhausted, drenched, and shivering from the cold. Once safely on land, Tayanita immediately assesses her condition. She is in shock, weak from the struggle, and suffering from hypothermia. Using his knowledge of herbs and natural remedies, he gathers dry leaves and moss to create insulation and sets a small, controlled fire to warm her. He wraps her in a thick blanket of furs and sits by her side, keeping a vigilant watch over the surroundings. The tension of the rescue fades slowly, replaced by a fragile silence, a mix of relief, gratitude, and the unspoken acknowledgement of a life saved against overwhelming odds. Elena, regaining her strength, begins to speak in broken sentences, explaining that she was fleeing from danger. Her voice trembles, revealing fragments of a story filled with fear, betrayal, and uncertainty. She had been traveling with a small group but had become separated after an ambush by hostile forces, men who sought to exploit or harm her. Tayanita listens silently, his face a mask of concentration and concern, fully aware that their journey is far from over. Though the river has claimed no lives today, the threat surrounding Elena is still very real. This encounter marks the beginning of a transformative journey for both characters. Tayanita, whose life has been shaped by isolation and discipline, is confronted with vulnerability and human connection. Elena, previously dependent on her own wits and survival instincts, now faces the reality that she cannot navigate the dangers alone. Their alliance, born out of immediate necessity, sets the stage for trust, friendship, and eventually deeper bonds as they navigate the trials awaiting them in the wilderness. The narrative also hints at future complications. Tayanita is unaware of the deeper reasons behind Elena's flight. The danger that chased her is likely more complex and far-reaching than the immediate threat of the river. Shadows from her past may not only threaten her life but could challenge Tayanita's moral judgment, courage, and loyalty. The audience is left with a sense of suspense. Who exactly is pursuing her, and what are the stakes if they catch up? The river rescue is only the first chapter in a story that promises danger, self-discovery, and a profound exploration of human resilience and trust. Finally, the outline emphasizes the environmental and emotional setting. The forest, river, and wilderness are not mere backdrops. They act as characters themselves, reflecting the peril, beauty, and unpredictability of life in this unforgiving landscape. The vivid imagery of rushing water, dense foliage, and the crisp, cold air enhances the tension and stakes of the rescue, while also highlighting the strength and skill of Tayanita. Through detailed description, the story immerses the reader in the sensory and emotional experience of the rescue, setting a solid foundation for the events to follow. After the tense river rescue, Tayanita realizes that immediate action is necessary. The riverbank, though safer than the turbulent waters, offers little long-term security. The surrounding forest, dense and teeming with wildlife, could conceal both threats and shelter. Elena is exhausted, her body trembling from the cold, and her eyes haunted by the trauma of being pursued. Tayanita knows that staying in one place for long is risky. With careful thought, he decides they must move toward a hidden clearing he knows, a secluded spot deep within the forest that offers both protection and sustenance. As they traverse the rugged landscape, the narrative emphasizes the growing bond between rescuer and rescued. Tayanita takes on a protective, almost parental role, guiding Elena over roots and slippery rocks, warning her of potential hazards, and sharing survival techniques. He shows her how to move silently through the underbrush, how to identify edible plants, and the signs of nearby predators. These lessons are not delivered as lectures, but as practical guidance, often through shared labor like gathering firewood or setting a small trap for food. In these moments, Elena begins to see Tayanita not just as a savior, but as a mentor, someone whose knowledge and composure can help her survive the wilderness. Elena, initially timid and mistrustful, starts to open up during the journey. She shares fragments of her story, her home, her family, and the circumstances that led her to flee. She is articulate but cautious, weighing every word as though the forest itself might be listening. Through her revelations, the audience gains insight into her past. She comes from a family caught in political and social strife, perhaps with enemies who seek to control or harm her. These details increase the narrative tension, hinting at dangers that are not just physical but deeply personal and potentially lethal. Tayanita listens carefully. His response is measured and calm, offering advice and reassurance without prying excessively, respecting her vulnerability while providing steady support. The journey also becomes a crucible for character development. Both face small trials that test their endurance, courage, and adaptability. A sudden thunderstorm forces them to take shelter under a rocky overhang, the wind whipping rain into their faces, soaking them through and chilling them to the bone. In this moment of shared discomfort, Elena witnesses Tayanita's resourcefulness and patience. He builds a small windproof fire, gathers dry moss for insulation, and tends to her needs first before attending to his own. These actions, though simple, carry immense symbolic weight. They demonstrate selflessness, competence, and reliability, qualities that will later underpin the emotional trust forming between them. As they travel, the story also explores the inner worlds of both characters. Tayanita, accustomed to solitude, grapples with his own feelings of responsibility, questioning whether he is doing enough to protect her. He reflects on his past, moments of loss, and the strict moral code instilled by his elders. These introspections humanize him, revealing vulnerabilities beneath his stoic exterior. Elena, on the other hand, battles fear and doubt, confronting not only the immediate dangers of the wilderness but also her deep-seated mistrust of others born from betrayal. Her internal struggle adds tension to the journey. Will she allow herself to rely fully on Tyanita, or will fear and past trauma hold her back? Along the way, minor obstacles serve to heighten suspense and test their cooperation. A fallen tree blocks their path, forcing Tyanita to demonstrate both physical strength and problem-solving skills. At one point, the distant sound of hooves signals that pursuers may be near. Elena freezes, panic threatening to overtake her, but Tyanita's calm guidance allows her to move stealthily and avoid detection. Each challenge strengthens their bond. She begins to trust his judgment implicitly, while he learns to anticipate her needs and fears. The wilderness, dangerous and unpredictable, becomes the backdrop against which their trust and connection develop organically. The journey also allows for moments of quiet intimacy. Around the campfire at night, they share simple meals, stories, and observations about the natural world. The firelight illuminates Elena's weary but resilient face, highlighting her gratitude and growing admiration for Tyanita. These moments are not romantic, but they sow the seeds of emotional attachment. The audience senses the tension between personal need and mutual respect, creating anticipation for the deeper emotional developments to come. By the end of this segment, they reach the hidden clearing. It is a serene glade, shielded by towering trees and surrounded by a shallow, meandering creek. Here, Tyanita knows they can rest safely for a few days, replenish supplies, and plan their next moves. The clearing symbolizes a temporary sanctuary, a place where survival is possible and trust can deepen without immediate threat. Both characters are physically exhausted but emotionally fortified. Elena has survived her first days of peril with guidance, and Tyanita has proven to himself that he can protect and nurture another human being without losing control of his own principles. Outline 2 establishes the foundation for their partnership. The journey demonstrates that survival is not merely a physical challenge but a relational one. Trust, empathy, and shared responsibility are as essential as skill and strength. It also subtly introduces future conflict. The threats pursuing Elena are still present, and the forest, while a refuge, remains unpredictable. The story balances tension with character development, ensuring that readers remain invested in both the immediate survival story and the evolving emotional dynamics between Tyanita and Elena. After several days in the hidden clearing, Tyanita and Elena begin to feel a fragile sense of security. The glade, surrounded by dense forest and a gentle creek, provides sustenance, shelter, and time for recovery. Elena regains her strength, learning to forage with Tyanita, and even helps gather firewood and prepare simple meals. The rhythm of survival begins to bring a sense of normalcy, allowing them both a brief respite from the tension of flight. However, the peace is deceptive. Danger has not vanished, merely receded into the shadows. Tyanita, experienced and vigilant, notices subtle signs of intrusion. Broken twigs along a rarely traveled path, faint hoof prints near the edge of the clearing, and distant sounds of voices carried on the wind all suggest that someone is tracking them. At first, Elena dismisses these signs, clinging to the hope that they are safe for now. But Tyanita's instincts are seldom wrong, and he knows that complacency in the wilderness can be fatal. He decides to reinforce their defenses. He sets up early warning traps, camouflages their camp, and scouts the surrounding terrain for vantage points. These preparations not only enhance physical safety, but also strengthen Elena's confidence in his skill and judgment. The narrative tension escalates when Elena begins to reveal the nature of the threat she has been fleeing. She discloses that her pursuers are not random marauders but a dangerous, organized group with a vested interest in controlling or exploiting her. Perhaps they are powerful landowners, corrupt officials, or a criminal gang who see her as leverage in a larger scheme. The revelation is chilling. Their reach is extensive, and they will not stop until she is captured or eliminated. Tyanita absorbs this information silently, analyzing possible escape routes, weaknesses in their pursuer's strategy, and the moral implications of involving others or engaging in confrontation. He recognizes that protecting Elena may require more than survival skills. It could demand cunning, diplomacy, and courage under direct threat. This portion of the story also explores the psychological toll of constant vigilance. Elena's fear is palpable, manifesting in restless nights and anxious glances into the forest. She is haunted by memories of prior betrayals, and every sound triggers panic. Tyanita, while outwardly calm, internally struggles with the responsibility of keeping her alive. He reflects on his own past experiences with loss and danger, recognizing that failure could have devastating consequences. These internal conflicts humanize both characters, giving depth to their actions and reinforcing the high stakes of the story. Tyanita's leadership and strategic mind become critical when evidence of the pursuers grows undeniable. One evening, he spots shadowy figures approaching from the ridgeline, their movement deliberate and stealthy. He immediately instructs Elena to remain quiet and hidden, signaling her to stay within a concealed portion of the camp while he positions himself to monitor the intruders. Using a combination of tracking knowledge and intuition, Tyanita identifies that the group is likely scouting rather than attacking, immediately an ominous sign that they are planning a coordinated move. This discovery forces him to weigh options: stay put and risk confrontation, flee and risk exposure, or attempt to divert the pursuers. Each choice carries serious risks, emphasizing the precariousness of their situation. During this time, the emotional bond between Tyanita and Elena deepens further. The stress of being hunted brings them closer, as trust is no longer optional but a necessity. Elena's reliance on Tyanita intensifies, while he begins to appreciate her resilience, quick thinking, and quiet determination. The narrative carefully develops this dynamic without rushing into romance, focusing instead on mutual respect and the shared weight of survival. These moments of emotional connection provide contrast to the imminent danger, giving the story balance between tension and human intimacy. A key turning point occurs when Elena's pursuers leave unmistakable signs of their intent. A marked tree, a deliberately left item, or a message carved into bark signals that they are aware of her presence and are methodically closing in. This revelation ignites a sense of urgency. Staying in the clearing, no matter how secure it feels, is no longer viable. Tyanita devises a plan to move them further into the wilderness, to terrain only he knows, territory where tracking them will be difficult, and where the forest itself can serve as a natural barrier. He carefully explains the plan to Elena, highlighting the need for absolute silence, patience, and cooperation. The outline emphasizes suspense and strategic thinking, highlighting how Tyanita's knowledge of the land contrasts with the calculated danger posed by Elena's pursuers. The story also delves into the emotional stakes. Elena is forced to confront fear, rely on someone else entirely, and navigate the unknown, while Tyanita must confront the moral and physical responsibilities of leadership in a life-or-death scenario. Every decision carries consequences, creating a palpable tension that keeps the audience invested. By the end of Outline 3, the stage is set for the next phase of the story: the flight deeper into the wilderness and the inevitable confrontation with those who seek to capture Elena. The characters have evolved through shared adversity. Trust has been forged under fire. Skills have been tested, and the forest has become both a sanctuary and a battleground. The outline balances suspense, character development, and the looming threat of conflict, preparing the narrative for its next critical turning point. Following the revelation of Elena's pursuers, Tyanita realizes that staying in the clearing is too dangerous. With meticulous planning, he prepares to lead her deeper into the wilderness, an area few outsiders know, where survival depends on skill, intuition, and courage. The forest beyond the clearing is denser, the terrain rugged, and the river crossings treacherous. Every step presents potential danger, whether from wildlife, natural obstacles, or the relentless human threat tracking them. The narrative in this stage emphasizes suspense, resilience, and the growing interdependence of the characters. The journey begins with Tyanita guiding Elena through concealed trails, instructing her on ways to minimize their tracks. Every movement is deliberate, stepping on soft earth instead of dry leaves, crossing streams and less visible areas and using the wind to mask their scents. The story highlights Tyanita's acute awareness of the wilderness, turning the environment into both ally and challenge. Elena, though initially hesitant, proves quick to adapt. She learns to move silently, recognize subtle signs of danger, and trust Tyanita's judgment even when the path is physically exhausting and psychologically taxing. These lessons not only enhance their survival but deepen the bond between them. Along the journey, they encounter multiple tests of courage. At one point, a sudden flash flood blocks their path, a result of upstream rainfall. The river swells dangerously, threatening to sweep them away. Tyanita assesses the currents, identifies the safest crossing points, and instructs Elena on how to maintain balance and avoid being carried by the surge. This scene is tense and cinematic. Elena's fear is palpable, her trembling hands gripping Tyanita's arm, her life momentarily hanging on his strength and experience. Successfully crossing the river reinforces both trust and mutual respect, highlighting Tyanita's heroism and Elena's growing resilience. The wilderness itself poses further challenges. They traverse steep cliffs, navigate dense thickets, and avoid predators such as wolves or mountain lions. Each encounter tests their ingenuity, teamwork, and courage. For instance, when a predatory animal approaches their temporary campsite, Tyanita quietly devises a way to scare it off without confrontation, protecting Elena while maintaining the ethical balance he holds as a warrior. Through these trials, the narrative underscores that true courage is not reckless aggression but measured action, intelligence, and the willingness to act under pressure to protect others. Meanwhile, Elena's character evolves dramatically. Her initial vulnerability begins to give way to quiet strength. She learns to anticipate Tyanita's actions, to prepare for obstacles, and even to assist in minor decisions that affect their survival. She starts demonstrating resourcefulness, identifying edible plants, finding safe paths through the underbrush, and noticing signs of potential danger before Tyanita does. These contributions, though subtle, signify her growing agency and establish her as more than a passive character. Her dependence on Tyanita is balanced by her increasing capability, creating a dynamic partnership forged in adversity. The human threat also intensifies during this phase. Tyanita occasionally spots distant signs that the pursuers are tracking them: broken branches, faint footprints, and the distant crack of a rifle shot echoing through the forest. The story uses these moments to heighten suspense, as both characters must remain constantly alert. Tyanita's leadership is tested not just physically but strategically. He must decide when to hide, when to move, and how to keep Elena safe without panicking her. The tension illustrates the stakes. One misstep could expose them both to deadly danger. Amid the physical challenges, there are moments of reflection and emotional intimacy. At night, by a small fire or under the shelter of a rock overhang, they share stories, hopes, and fears. These conversations are brief and candid, revealing glimpses of their pasts and personalities. Tayanita reflects on his solitary upbringing, his moral code, and the rare opportunity to protect someone he cares for. Elena shares fragments of her dreams, fears, and experiences, building a quiet trust in Tayanita's judgment and integrity. The narrative carefully balances these intimate moments with the surrounding tension, providing emotional depth without diluting suspense. This outline also emphasizes the symbolic journey of transformation. The wilderness serves as a crucible. It strips them to their essentials, forcing courage, intelligence, and compassion to the forefront. Tayanita's heroism is evident in his physical prowess, tactical thinking, and moral guidance. Elena's growth is equally evident in her increasing confidence, resilience, and willingness to engage with danger rather than retreat from it. Together, they form a symbiotic partnership where survival depends on both skill and mutual trust. By the end of Outline 4, they reach a vantage point overlooking a safer valley beyond the mountains. This new location represents hope, a potential sanctuary where they can regroup and plan their next moves. The journey has tested their physical limits, forged unbreakable trust, and set the stage for the climactic confrontation with those pursuing. Elena. The story underscores that survival is as much about courage, intellect, and emotional resilience as it is about physical strength. Both characters have evolved from their initial states, Tayanita from a solitary, disciplined warrior into a protector capable of deep empathy, and Elena from a terrified fugitive into a resourceful and courageous partner in survival. The journey through the wilderness reaches its apex as Tayanita and Elena arrive in a hidden valley, a secluded haven shielded by high ridges and dense foliage. This valley, untouched by the intrusions of the outside world, represents both refuge and a final stage for the story's tension to unfold. However, safety is fleeting. Tayanita is fully aware that Elena's pursuers are resourceful, persistent, and ruthless. The climax is not only a physical confrontation but also a test of strategy, courage, and emotional resilience for both characters. The story escalates when signs of the pursuers become undeniable. Faint smoke in the distance, the glint of metal from rifles, and the unmistakable sound of approaching horses. Tayanita quickly formulates a plan. Using his intimate knowledge of the terrain, he positions Elena in a hidden spot overlooking a narrow pass while he prepares to intercept the group. Every decision is deliberate, balancing the need to protect Elena with the tactical advantage offered by the environment. The tension is palpable, with the forest and rocky ridges turning into both obstacles and tools in the unfolding confrontation. As the pursuers approach, Tayanita employs both skill and cunning. He uses natural camouflage, sets strategic alarms with twigs and stones, and creates diversions to disorient the attackers. The scene is cinematic. Arrows whisper through the trees. Dust clouds rise as intruders scramble over rocks, and the interplay of shadow and light transforms the valley into a stage for life and death maneuvering. Tayanita's years of training and experience shine in these moments. But what makes him extraordinary is his moral compass. He seeks to neutralize the threat without unnecessary bloodshed, prioritizing defense over vengeance. Elena, initially hidden, witnesses Tayanita's heroism in real time. Her fear is tempered by awe and trust. She sees not only his physical skill but his strategic intelligence and moral clarity. This moment solidifies the emotional bond between them. She is no longer a passive victim. She contributes by remaining vigilant, alerting Tayanita to subtle movements, and assisting with minor but critical tasks, such as signaling or gathering resources. Her growth is evident. She has transitioned from terrified flight to active participation, symbolizing resilience and the transformative power of trust and guidance. The confrontation peaks when the pursuers, frustrated by Tyanita's tactics, attempt a direct approach through a narrow pass. Using his knowledge of the terrain, Tyanita creates a final diversion, drawing the group into a trap that immobilizes them without lethal force. The strategy is precise and efficient. Rocks tumble to block passage, branches ensnare attackers, and the narrow geography prevents coordinated assault. The intruders are neutralized not by brute strength alone, but by intelligence, patience, and deep familiarity with the land. The climax resolves the immediate threat, showcasing the synergy of courage, skill, and moral judgment. In the aftermath, both characters reflect on the journey and its consequences. Elena is overwhelmed by gratitude and awe, acknowledging that her survival is owed to Tyanita's unwavering courage, wisdom, and compassion. Tyanita, in turn, is moved by Elena's resilience, intelligence, and trust, realizing that their shared experience has forged a bond deeper than simple survival. It is an emotional connection rooted in respect, reliance, and the understanding of shared peril. This moment underscores one of the story's central themes. Human connection and trust can flourish even in the harshest circumstances. The resolution also addresses lingering threats. The pursuers, though temporarily neutralized, are forced to retreat, acknowledging their inability to penetrate the natural defenses of the wilderness or outmatch Tyanita's ingenuity. The valley, previously a temporary refuge, now becomes a symbol of enduring sanctuary, a place where Tyanita and Elena can plan their future steps free from immediate danger. The narrative suggests that while life in the wilderness remains challenging, the characters have gained skills, confidence, and mutual trust that will equip them for future challenges. Emotionally, the story reaches closure by emphasizing growth and transformation. Tyanita, who began as a solitary figure, has discovered a profound capacity for empathy, partnership, and mentorship. Elena, who began the journey terrified and vulnerable, has evolved into a courageous, resourceful, and emotionally resilient individual. Their journey together demonstrates the interdependence of skill, trust, and emotional courage in overcoming adversity. The final scenes are quiet yet powerful. They share a moment of mutual respect and unspoken gratitude, acknowledging the journey that has bonded them. Irrevocably. The outline concludes by reflecting on the broader thematic elements. The wilderness, once a backdrop of danger and unpredictability, has shaped the characters, tested their limits, and revealed the depths of their courage. The story celebrates human resilience, moral integrity, and the transformative power of trust and cooperation. While external threats were formidable, it is the internal growth of both Tyanita and Elena, trust, courage, and emotional connection that ultimately defines their triumph. The narrative closes with a sense of hope, survival, and enduring partnership, leaving the audience both satisfied and reflective on the journey's profound lessons.